So we will start with just some introductions. Say why you're running. I'll start with you. We'll go minute and a half.
So my name is Rob Imhoff, business owner. Have three boys and four grandsons, and so lifelong Oregonian, and uh, decided to run a couple years ago and was not successful, and didn't think I wanted to do it again. Sometimes you get beat on something, and they decide what you want to do. I decided to double down and went to county college to learn about. I just wanted to press in, understand how the county operates, to become better informed, and then really just do everything I could to bring my knowledge base to in the private sector, bring that to the public sector and county government, and look for ways to become more efficient and look for ways to be more engaged and more invested, so that the next generation, which I see some big concerns with what they're going to inherit, trying to really make a path forward for them that is considerate of all those things, and whether that be housing affordability or natural resources or jobs, or I mean there's any number of things. Some of the social issues we deal with homelessness, and realizing that my boys never grew up in a world that didn't experience homelessness on a day-to-day and just their day-to-day interactions. And I want maybe if there's a path to go back at all to try to fix some of the things that we've done incorrectly, then I think that that's our job and our duty. So that's why I run.
Great. So,
Thank you.
Shane?
My name is Morgan Schmidt. My name is Morgan Schmidt. I've been in Deschutes County for 11 years and spent the last 20 years in public service. I'm an ordained Presbyterian pastor and served at Bend First Presbyterian Church for many years. As part of that effort, was a community leader during our COVID response for the pandemic, and launched a mutual aid network that totaled thousands of people here in the county, as well as people across the country and around the world. That gave me a front row seat to the problems that face our neighbors every day here in Deschutes County. And instead of just focusing on direct service to those folks, it really inspired me to work upstream and work on policy and talk about how we can fix the systems that put people in vulnerable positions in the first place. That led me to run in 2022 against Commissioner Adair, where I got very close, lost by just 1% in that election. And I'm here to finish the job. I've been laser focused on this work and on learning the job of the county commissioner for the last 4 years. And ever since that election, have been serving as the executive director for the Red Cross of Central and Eastern Oregon, really focused on community resilience and how do we respond when disasters hit. This doesn't make me a very fun dinner guest, I'm aware, religion, politics, and disaster, but I think it's equipped me to be an excellent county commissioner, and I am ready to win and equipped to lead. With laser focus, there's a lot the county commission does that I care about, but really laser focused on our housing affordability crisis and making sure the people who live here and work here can actually afford a home here, as well as making sure we have robust public health and mental health services for the people who need them most, and really concerned for a lot of what the county commission does is related to land use and how we steward our lands, waters, wild places, wildlife, and protect against wildfire. So really looking at how we can do that in a way that that serves our rural communities, our agricultural lands, and addresses the water crisis that we face. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Letz. I'm currently the mayor of the City of Sisters, and this is my 6th year on City Council in Sisters. Excited to be running for County Commissioner. I've lived in Deschutes County for the majority of my life. I grew up here. I went to elementary, middle school, high school. Go all the Bears. I did spend a year at Mountain View, so I'm kind of 1/4 Cougar, 3/4 Aldo Bear. But so this is my home. This has always been my home. I've lived other places, as most of us have. I'll keep coming back. So this place means a lot to me. And I'm just really excited to apply a lot of what I've learned and what I've experienced and what I've helped execute in Sisters and the Sisters area, and bring it to the county level. We have a lot of experience with a lot of the topics that are, sisters are not immune to anything going on in Deschutes County. We experience it at different levels. For instance, wildfire, we're obviously a little bit more acutely um, uh, exposed to wildfire, though all of Deschutes County does have a wildfire risk. And so we've been really aggressive on addressing wildfire issues and changing a lot of our policy, a lot of our code around that. We've been a leader in the state around that. And I'm really excited about those changes. And we've even been able to influence the county with them adopting RS 327, which will help improve our building codes from here on out. But there's, a lot of, but then also that, is really about protecting lives, protecting property, protecting homes. We really need to be obviously building more homes and more variety of homes. But we have to protect the ones that we already have. We don't need to go backwards in that respect. So I'm just excited to kind of bring my experience and my independent nature. I'm also never been affiliated with a party. And the voters in the last few years have asked the county two things, or one is to add 2 more commissioners because 3 wasn't serving the people of Deschutes County well. And I'm excited that we're going to go to 5. And also wanted a nonpartisan election. And I think that it's a mandate from the people that I think people are kind of sick of partisan politics. They just want people to serve and do the work and do the right thing and not be influenced by, other people regionally, nationally in that respect. So thank you.
What is the role of a county commissioner? Morgan, let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Here, I know some people, have jumped in the race, or others may say that they're somehow ordained to run. I'm here to do the work and to do the job. It's certainly not about the campaigning process. That's not my favorite part. But the role of the county commissioner isn't glamorous. It's to oversee 22 departments and over 1,200 staff and a budget of over $500 million and make sure that we provide excellent services to the people of Deschutes County. And so I've been preparing for the last 4 years to do that work. I'm ready to do that work. And I really think the priorities for our next commission with 5 commissioners needs to be focusing on our affordability crisis and making sure the people who make this place so amazing actually have a chance to live here and thrive here, make sure our businesses can actually afford to hire a workforce who can afford to live here. And then really taking our mandate as the public health authority, the public behavioral health authority seriously, and investing in our public health and mental health programs so that those resources are equitable and accessible to the people who need them most. And then, of course, somehow partnering with city and state partners on all of this work on every level, but especially in the ways that we're growing. We know that we're growing. That's somewhat unavoidable, but how we grow, how intentionally we grow, is really a big part of the job. And I intend to approach it. And my colleague said, it is a nonpartisan election, and I'm really proud of the endorsements I've received that cover 3 political parties, most of our state representatives, many of our city councilors, and countless community leaders that are ready to do the work. I don't mind, where you're at as a partisan, but I'm ready to do the work and focus on solutions for real people in Deschutes County.
Jennifer?
Yeah. All she said, that was great. That's a good description. I'll add that we have this really unique opportunity, literally like a once in 100-year opportunity. We're going to add 2 new commissioners, and that was so needed. But being a counselor over the last 6 years and our purview from the county and working with the county closely and the commissioners, 3 people cannot serve the people of this county well. And adding 2 more people is going to be a fantastic opportunity to really be able to serve the people in our county so much better. And I think one thing that I think voters need to keep in mind is that when you're voting for a commissioner, a counselor, somebody that is one of a number of people versus a governor or president, somebody that stands alone, is that you want somebody that's a team player. And you want somebody that's going to work well with others. That a commissioner is going to be one of 5 people. So it's going to be more important that they are able to work with their team, work with staff, work with other cities, work with state government, work with the federal government to bring solutions to Deschutes County. And I think that's just really important to keep in mind. It's going to be a very confusing ballot. There's going to be 4 seats with almost 20 candidates. And
We second that.
yeah, lots of work, just keeping you guys busy for sure. But I think as a voter, it's going to be a little confusing, especially during a primary. And I find, who do I think is really going to work well with other people to get the work done? Because that's what a commission does. That's what a council does, is work as a team. And of course, it doesn't mean that people are always going to vote the same or agree on everything. That's not expected and not wanted. We want spirited debate. But we don't want people that are going to kind of get in their corners and not make decisions, stall processes. I think we've seen a lot of that over the last, handful of years at the commission level. And again, I think people in Deschutes County are sick of that and just want people to get in there and do the work to help people in the county.
Thank you. So that's it's a broad question. I would say the number one job of a county commissioner is executive function. So the job of county commissioner is to look at a $703 billion budget and figure out the best way that money should be spent. Every single taxpayer should have a say in where that money goes. That's why I believe a more balanced. I was against 3 commissioners expanding to 5, and the reason why I was is because I felt like 2 commissioners could go have a conversation that was off record, and the public didn't know what that conversation entailed. So I liked the transparency was a huge part for me of why I think that government should be transparent.
So you wanted them. You liked 3 because
I preferred 3 from a transparency perspective.
Okay.
Because 3 meant that none of them would go meet without having public record. And I think that was an important distinction that some people didn't understand what the difference between 3 and 5 was. And so, I studied some other counties that had 5, and I talked to some of the other commissioners that had 5 in their counties and asked them about that part of it. And the truth is both sides, there's a little bit of conversation that happens outside of the public's purview. And I wanted to have transparency because I just think that, to me, a transparent government is what we should desire. Not that we can't get there with 5. It just needs to be a focal point for the new 5 commissioners. 4 new commissioners and Phil that are going to be filling these spaces. We need to have open conversations. We need to not be dug into ideology. What we need to do is we need to say, okay, take each issue by itself. What are we doing well? What can improve? And then based on what we find, not be so entrenched in a thinking or a process or a method that we're unwilling to look at another method that might be better. And so that's kind of what my commitment is that I have broad support from moderates all the way, just kind of I would love to have, honestly, I would love to have every party's endorsement, just because I think a lot of the ideas that I have are not partisan. They're just common sense approaches to governance that I feel like most people can agree what they're seeking in their government is efficiency, collaboration, communication. And, I think if you could do those things, that it reestablishes trust.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, this question is, what is your view of the county district map proposal? And if you were elected commissioner, would you support any future changes to the map or the redrawing of district lines? We'll start with Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that, and I think Commissioner Chang said this, I don't want to throw them under the bus, I don't want to misquote him, but I agreed with him kind of from the beginning that I felt that it was important to, I think, first bring on the 2 new commissioners and let them discuss that and make that decision of, was there a need for districting and how that process would roll out. Because this process was rushed, I don't think that the product that's going to go in front of voters in November is good. And I'm on the fence about districting, and for a couple of reasons. Is one, in Deschutes County, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed this, but nobody has a tendency to live where they work or where they play or where their kid goes to school. We all have a connection to every other community in Deschutes County, and an intimate connection. I think more so than a lot of places in our state, a lot of places in our country. So I think anybody, serving in this role, ultimately has skin in the game to be representing everybody in every corner of this county. But I would certainly like that discussion to go on. I definitely disagreed with the committee siding on kind of trying to draw lines based on voter rolls versus population. That was ridiculous, and that disenfranchised families. Obviously, anybody 0 to 17 can't vote, and even though that's a significant portion of our population, there's a lot of people that are people living here who don't have citizenship yet, or people who come out of the penal system that can't vote, and it totally ignored a large portion of our population in that process. So I don't think that the product we're going to see in November and vote on is good by any means. And I think that a new commission should have that discussion. And if the new Board of County Commissioners feels like districting is still a good option, then to roll out a process that's more fair, even-handed, and is really going to produce a good result that's going to give fair representation to everybody in the county.
I'm just curious, given your unique perspective as the mayor of Sisters, do you think districting would benefit Sisters?
I mean, you can go either way on that. I just, for one thing, right now we have 3 commissioners, and one lives in North County, one lives in Bound, and one lives in South County. And that had nothing to do with districting. It just kind of worked out that way. Certainly I can understand, obviously, being from the northwest part of the county, Redmond, Lapine, the majority of people in the county live in Bend and around Bend. I mean, that's just a fact. And so it's a little easy to feel like you get forgotten sometimes. I feel there's a little bit of danger in districting in that it might give people the opportunity to get in their corner and start maybe fighting over resources or funding. I think there's a great opportunity to be a voice, and I think really what I'm hoping the new 5 commission model will review is an opportunity. They're going to have a whole new opportunity to restructure how they do business. And one of those things could be, okay, maybe if we don't even live in certain areas, but so-and-so, you're going to be the South County person. So-and-so, you're going to be the Redmond person. And because there's a lot of committees, a lot of commissions that commissioners sit on. And that might be one way to divvy out the work, and also
When you stop your
outreach to people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Rob, would you like to repeat the question?
No, I think I understand the question. I am absolutely in favor of the districting, and the reason why I am is because when you play out any other scenario, you have areas of common interest that's kind of how I refer to it. But someone that lives in Lapine that I speak to that versus someone who lives in Sisters versus someone who lives in downtown Bend versus someone who lives in Redmond versus someone who lives maybe in Alfalfa. There's differing things, whether it be resources like water, whether it be wildfire danger, whether it be the level of services that they are. So people who live in town have a city government that overlays before the county government. So there are certain government services for sure that every single person who lives in Deschutes County is rely on. But you look at situations like our roads. City handles the roads in the city of Bend. County handles everything that's outside the UGB. So when you have potholes or when you have whatever, the person who lives in the county that has their road that is or isn't being serviced, the county's responsible for fulfilling that role. When you call 911, the sheriff's office is who comes. It's not the city of Bend Police. It's not the city of Redmond. It's not. So you have unincorporated. You have Lapine. You have Sisters that are both kind of hybrids where they rely on the sheriff's office for their law enforcement. But when you talk about representation, and I'm sure Jennifer could probably speak to this as well, just because the fact that she lives in Sisters, a lot of the people I talk to as Sisters don't feel like they're necessarily being represented in all areas, whether they disagree with how their current commissioners represent them or not. The idea of having a commissioner that's theirs that represents a pocket or an area of common interest and identity. And then you talk to people in South County who are very passionate about wanting to have their own commissioner. So when I talk, I mean, the reality for me is I serve at the will of the people. I mean, that's the job of us as county commissioners. And so if the people want, the reason why I liked it going before the voters and not having the commissioners decide on it is because the voters ultimately get to look at it and say, on its merits, do we want to have a commissioner that we identify with that's our commissioner, or do we want to have a broader 5 commissioners and then we kind of maybe we'll find one, be a committee or be another method? I will say that I don't like the idea of non-districting because but the potential is there to have a with the models that you look at with 1 at large and then 4 district, is that because of population, you run the risk of having 5 commissioners all from that. Not that it would happen, and not that it has happened yet, but it is something that could happen, and the districting protects against that. And so I believe that we should consider redrawing after each census. I do think that we need to make sure that it's still representing the right way. And I think that if you look at the current districting, it favors NABs. Because NABs are the largest population as far as a political party, the non-affiliated voter is the largest number of representation in our county. And if each of those districts tends to favor NABs, then to me that seems like it's going to be the most equitable way to represent people. And so I guess just in closing, I would just say that I feel like our rural neighbors have the county government's their main form of government. And I feel like they a lot of the times I talk to them, they don't feel like they necessarily have a voice the way that people who live in the city feel like they do with regards to representation for some of the key issues. So thanks.
And Morgan, would you like me to repeat the
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
Okay, great. What is your view of the county district map proposal? And if you were elected commissioner, would you support any future changes to the map or the redrawing of district lines?
Thank you. I think this map is an answer in search of a question. I think maybe the initial intent was to figure out what representation can look like for all Deschutes County residents. And that's a question I think near and dear to my heart, but I think government should be responsible for addressing. But this map doesn't do the trick. What it does is that it disenfranchises voters, disempowers voters, goes from giving people a say in each of the 5 commissioners that serve our county to just having a say on one commissioner who's part of, representing one slice or maybe one special interest. When I think we can do better. I think we can look at the work of the county and say, certainly water doesn't abide by district lines. Fire doesn't abide by district lines. Mental health services doesn't stop at a district line. And so we need to have and insist on county commissioners that can fold the full picture and look at representation when we have these 5 commissioners, when we have good census data, when we have maybe the ability to consider some other models that don't just wedge voters into this position where they only get 1 vote for 1 commissioner. From what I hear when I'm talking to people across the county, that feels like disenfranchisement, that feels like disempowerment. And we deserve better. I live in Bend, and I make no secret of that, but I have spent years and years at this work, traveling across the county. And I've had people ask me if I live in Sisters, ask me if I live in Lapine, ask me if I live in Redmond, because I think we deserve commissioners that will get on the road and do the work and listen to people in every corner of our county. And so I don't think this map is a foregone conclusion. It's really confusing voters this time around, which grieves me. I just had a call from a voter this morning who was confused about it. And so for this election, I think it's important that we elect these commissioners to fill out a 5-commissioner board, and then let those folks do the work of a broader public process with better data, with more creative solutions. And I think anyone running for this office who wants to see that map in place is maybe looking for less responsibility and less accountability to our voters.
Could I got the ability to respond to that? Sure. I was directing at me. So I can tell you, if you look at my map and where I've been to every single corner of this county multiple times. I have multiple relationships and friends in rural and city, doesn't matter where. South County to Crooked River Ranch, I don't believe that my intention of supporting the map has anything to do with avoiding responsibility. I think that it's about representation. And if someone that I'm going to serve in this seat in North County feels like they're better represented by me because I represent them, then I'm willing to narrow my scope for the purposes of the needs and whatever it is that they, because like I said, there's varying needs. Someone in North County, for instance, has a very different water need and accessibility than someone who lives in South County. And so when you start to talk about what our representation needs to look like, it's not about avoiding responsibility. It's about representing people the best way that we can and having them feel like they're represented the best way they can.
And I think for something like that, it's perfectly reasonable to consider a model like the Missoula model, where people maybe live in a district and are connected to the issues that are happening there, but are voted on by the entire county, so they can be held accountable by the entire county.
Rob, I'm going to come to you first.
Uh-oh.
Oversight of the sheriff and the sheriff's department is a large role of the commissioners. How would you go about ensuring proper oversight? And do you feel like the sheriff's department has had proper oversight?
In the past, obviously, it's well documented the struggles that we've had as the sheriff's office, whether that be, legal issues that we've run into, whether that be, a sheriff who struggles to tell the truth on really crazy things that don't make sense to me. What I will tell you is I have spent a lot of time with our current sheriff, just digging into kind of what he's up against from a budgetary perspective, what his needs are, and in order to lead that department. And what we've ended up with, obviously, no one wanted to go through what we went through with Sheriff Vanderkamp, but we did. So, and obviously there was a lot to be said about what happened with Sheriff Nelson as well before. So what I believe that the current sheriff has given us is someone who understands his role on the executive side, has trimmed the budget. Last I checked with him, there was, I think, $790,000 that he trimmed off of his budget this year without any loss of service. And so, again, that is something that is near and dear to my heart, because I think that that's what my goal is with all of the departments is what are we doing well? What do we need to improve on? And then where can we save money without having a loss of service? And so when we use that as the premise, I feel like we see a sheriff's department that I've talked to a lot of deputies. I'm friends with a number of them. But I've also, that's kind of how I base it is what does it look like to work for this sheriff? Are you happy with your job? Do you have the support you need from a mental health perspective because of what you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis as a law enforcement officer? And we have a sheriff that's committed to that. And so to me, it's very easy to support someone who has a similar mindset of not serving. And so right now I feel like the sheriff's office is heading in a positive direction. And so, and that when you talk to people about their interactions with deputies, because that is the hands of the sheriff's office and who we deal with, more and more and more, I'm hearing positive stories of positive interactions with the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office being committed to having an image about being for the community. Yes.
Yeah, as far as the fairgrounds is concerned, this is one of the county's enterprise funds, and the way that it's supposed to be set up is that it's self-sustaining, and so the operating revenue covers the costs of running the fairgrounds. Um, it's been in a tough place lately, and has required a little bit of assistance from the general fund. Um, I think it's a tough balance, and I'm really looking forward to see what the new fairgrounds director comes up with, Jeff Curtis. I think we're really lucky to have him, and really interested to see what they're able to decide on in terms of making that enterprise fund more sustainable. The Board of County Commissioners, the job is, of course, to oversee the budget, the land use, the capital improvements, and work with the Fair Board as they oversee the strategy and the program, and of course, the beloved county fair. And so, we haven't been keeping up with setting aside funds for capital reserves, for maintenance that's badly needed, for other improvements. I'm glad to see the county donating land for further expansion. But what I really think the fair requires is, for the commissioners to keep an eye on that budget crunch, but to really look at what's our balanced approach in using the fairgrounds on behalf of the community. It has this. I was just at the annual fairground dinner a couple months ago, and of course, part of the function is to drive revenue and bring in dollars for the local economy. It's a really important financial driver for the local businesses. It's been a space that provides legacy facilities to our 4-H community and our rural community. And at the same time, it needs to look at bringing in events to obviously provide revenue and pay for the facility and the programming. I'd like to see a balance between bringing in those events and organizations that are going to help us on the revenue side, while also balancing care for our community and a commitment to our rural communities and 4-H clubs, and even with the flat fire this past fall, making sure that the emergency functions of the fairground as an asset are something the community can count on, and people know that they can evacuate their livestock to the fairgrounds when they need to. And so this is a question of balance. I'm really excited to work with Jeff Curtis, the new director, and make sure we're holding the fairgrounds accountable, but also finding a way forward to revenue that allows us to serve the community with that space and protect the agricultural, ranching, and rural traditions that built that facility in the first place, and the revenue generating events that'll sustain it into the future. So
Thanks, Maureen.
You know,
A repeat of the question.
No,
Okay.
thank you. There's a new director, as Morgan pointed out, and I think that's exciting. That's a great opportunity. Hopefully some new ideas, new vision, and new perspective. Outside perspective is always extremely valuable. So I think right now, my tack would be to have the commission kind of outline, give that director some direction of the priorities, right? Of being fiscally responsible. It is an enterprise fund, like Morgan said. So, making sure that it's operating in the black every year, and providing services to people in Deschutes County, but also, bringing in events. I mean, it is a very unique facility. I mean, people will tell you that across the state, what it provides for state and national events. And so really being able to leverage that creatively, continue to do that. Obviously, it's a massive facility, lots of infrastructure. So, need to keep an eye on keeping care of that facility. I'm going to pivot a little bit on this topic because it's this amenity that does provide a lot of opportunities and resources and recreation for people in our county. Deschutes County is one of the only counties in the state, or one of the only, or in the minority, I should say, in the state of not having a county parks department. The county owns thousands and thousands of acres of land across the county, and we do not provide any areas, recreation, camping, trails for all user groups. We know that our federal partners, their ranks have been slashed, their funding's been slashed. We're not going to see any new campgrounds or facilities anytime soon, unfortunately, and we are decades behind on that. People in Deschutes County like to share our amenities, including the fairgrounds, with visitors. However, it's so expensive to live here, and then you have to go fight to even get a campground down the road from you. or a campsite, when you're competing with some of the other people. I would really like to provide some more recreation opportunities for the people in the county. And also, that is an opportunity to run that as an enterprise fund as well. We do that in Sisters. We own the campgrounds. That money we bring in from that campground pays for almost all of our parks maintenance in our city. So that is hopefully something that wouldn't cost taxpayer dollars and add amenity for people in our county and who's working so hard.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah.
So as an enterprise fund, I went and met with Bill Kuhn, who's also on the board, of just to get I want to get a handle on kind of what the Fair Board is doing, what they're up against, challenges. We do sit on the fairgrounds has 120 acres on the backside of it that's undeveloped that is there for the purpose of expansion. And then I've coached for 25 years, and so everyone who has youth in sports, especially if they travel, understands that most of the time we have to travel. We have to go to the Valley, we have to go to Medford, we have to go to Tri-Cities if we want to have tournaments. And so when you look at the amount of revenue and the economic impact that each of those tournaments has, that's a really, I believe it's a great opportunity to try to utilize some of that land. If we follow Medford's model, we follow Sacramento's model. One is a baseball, softball, lacrosse, soccer facility. That's Medford. It used to be called Southern One. It's not changed names, but Medford Park and Rec is the one that developed that property. And then their model, they built 4 fields, and then with tournament fees within 3 years, that was paid for, and they were able to build another. So it became, and now they are just netting revenue. And then when you look at Sacramento, they built an indoor facility that is a convention center, which is something that we don't really have a large convention center space. There's some broken up at the fairgrounds now with the Sisters buildings. But when you look at the way that the fairgrounds currently is, you look at the deferred maintenance that needs to be done, that has to be an area of focus, but there has to be revenue to do that. And so the idea would be if we can find corporate sponsorships, for instance, and you go to, let's just pick one, let's just say Les Schwab says, we're going to do the Les Schwab outdoor complex, field house, whatever it is. Work with some of these corporations, say, would you like to name a field after your company? Maybe it's SpaceX, doesn't matter. We're going to build a field. The field doesn't use water. It's all turf, so you don't have to deal with the resource portion of that. And then what that does is that's lined multiple different ways. It's lined for soccer, it's lined for lacrosse. You have movable outfields, you have plug base pass, and now you can host tournaments. And then when you host tournaments, I don't know people, very many people that come to Central Oregon go, I don't want to come back here. People love to be here. And so what that does is that all of a sudden creates opportunities for us to host tournaments. Our Memorial Day baseball tournament, for instance, is the largest tournament in the Northwest. And so when you look at the economic impact of a tournament, you say, well, that benefits every business, it benefits every restaurant, it benefits every hotel, and it benefits the people of Deschutes County. Now you do the same thing on an indoor, where you have an indoor facility that has it has basketball stanchions that drop down from the top, volleyball stanchions that drop down from the top, and a hardwood floor that you can overlay and turn into a convention center. It's very multi-use. You have a pod, some sort of food truck pod, and you have ways that are just generating revenue. And then that revenue then ultimately can be applied to facilities for the deferred maintenance and further expansion. And so that's, to me, an enterprise fund is something that's actually generating money. It's not something you're having to dump money into and then not maintaining the way it needs to. The rodeo is another example. Right now they have the High Desert Stampedes going on at the fairgrounds. And when you talk to those directors and you talk to people that have to move that dirt constantly, it is a very, very labor intensive sort of process. And so maybe part of that expansion is an additional piece. So anyways, it's about trying to find different ways to have it actually be something that benefits everybody in Deschutes County from an economic perspective. Thank you.
Okay, what role should the county play in addressing homelessness? And do you support the notion of managed camps funded by county dollars? Let's start with Jennifer.
Thanks. Somebody asked me the other day of, what's your top issue? And it was hard to pick a top issue because everything is so interconnected. Homelessness is interconnected with housing availability, affordability, wildfire, transportation. All those are so interconnected. So it's hard to answer these questions succinctly in 1.5 minutes. But I think
Solve homelessness.
yes, I'm going to solve homelessness in 30 seconds. In regards to managed camps, that's because that was a specific question. I would really like to see more efforts at the county and the city level working together to kind of come up with more permanent solutions. And in that vein of a managed camp, I would much prefer to see something that was really more stable and secure, like a mobile home park, something like that. We have lost so many mobile home parks in Central Oregon over the last 10 or 15 years. As land values went up, people sold off mobile home parks. And when you have to move out of a mobile home park, you don't have a lot of other options of places to move and choices. And that is something that has not been talked about a lot, but has exacerbated the problem. And having something that is more stable, where it could be a hybrid model, and it could be in cities and could be in county land, where we're having some, mobile homes and also maybe spaces for RVs. But it is a secure facility. It is kind of a semi-permanent facility in the regards that maybe in 20 years, if there's not a need for it, it can be used for something else, something like that. But I would just really like to see us pivot to really focus on more permanent solutions. It just seems like we're just kicking the ball a little bit, and I know it's a tough issue. But as a former wildland firefighter and somebody who works in the fire sector, has done a lot of work on wildfire, having people live outside communities, or even within communities, upcoming to a potentially horrible fire season with their drought that we're having. It terrifies me. It terrifies me for the lives of the people living in the forests. It terrifies me for the lives of people living adjacent to these camps. We know that there is a long history of fires being started in homeless camps. Fires started everywhere for all reasons, but I don't want to see anybody killed or hurt. I don't want to see property damage. And I think that we're kind of at a point where we need to make some hard decisions, consider closures around communities seasonally. And we have enough, we're starting to get to a point, we have more resources than we did 5 years ago in the county to support people who need to be moved. We need more. But if we can work on these concurrently, one move the needle on this. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Rob?
We asked that question.
Sure.
I just want to make sure I hit all points there.
Yeah. What role should the county play in addressing homelessness? And do you support the notion of managed camps funded by county dollars?
I'm outcome based. So the reality is that whatever we are going to do at the government level needs to be with the intended purpose of taking people and moving them from homelessness into some sort of permanent home. So camping is not permanent. It's not permanent. I spoke for about an hour yesterday with a friend of mine named Ryan, who I've been working with for about 7 years. That's been living on the dirt all 7 years, and he's now 2 months in permanent housing. And we were talking about the environment that the homeless encampments that are not managed, what they mean as far as criminality, as far as drug use, as far as mental illness, and just safety in general. And because we were actually discussing my proposal that we create 6 mile UGBs around each of the towns and cities in Central Oregon, Deschutes County, specifically so that because we have so many communities that are buffered against public land, that to try to get someone who's living next to BLM to be comfortable with someone camping right on the other side, with the potential for wildfire, with the potential for safety for their children and their pets and all of it. And it's not to demonize those, it's just about how do we find a compassionate reaction to that, and then ultimately something that creates the result that we're trying to get. Managing encampments, I believe, will get us, at least interim, it'll get us there. I do agree with Jennifer's point that I think we at least need to have seasonal closures. In high-risk fire seasons, we have to at least try to have something that has teeth. We have to have enforcement. Enforcement's a big thing, because you can have a lot of great ideas, but if they're not enforceable, then they're just ideas. And so, yes, we are unique because of our proximity to public land. I would also, I would say that I was just reading a study that was done in Boston that was moving people from um, urban homelessness into permanent housing. And when you look at that transition, they tracked it for 14 years. They tracked the transition, and then what happened? People went into permanent housing, and then what happened if they moved? And then it was they call it trimorbidity, but it was about whether or not those people ultimately, there was a high percentage of them that ultimately died in that window of 14 years because the housing situation was not permanent, and there was not all the other mental health, because you got to deal with mental health, you got to deal with addiction. And so you have to deal with those two things because they are big components. Not everyone who's homeless has those issues, but a lot of them do. And so if you don't have the services, that's where I feel like the county can come through bolster our vets, bolster our mental health support structure, bolster the addiction counseling and getting people out of that mindset. And then it's amazing to me. I witnessed it multiple times where people that finally get the help they need on the mental health and addiction side, they all of a sudden start to get a motivation that's intrinsic to become contributing members to society and move out of that lifestyle. And I think that should be our goal, is the outcome of thread of pulling people and walking with them through these steps out of homelessness. And I feel like the Housing First model has failed, and we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
I think so.
Yeah.
Morgan, you can go a little long. These have obviously this question.
How do I want to do that on this question? I guess I want to first and foremost clarify who we're talking about, because insinuating that somehow our unhoused neighbors are not contributing members to society, or as my opponent has suggested in other venues, that they're somehow homeless tourists that are here to take advantage of how easy it is to be unhoused in the high desert, which it's categorically not. The truth is that a lot of our unhoused community are working members of our community, that we have businesses that employ people who are not stably housed. We have kids going to our schools who woke up in a car this morning. And we have real data that says that 6% or less have been here for less than a year, and that the vast majority of people experiencing homelessness in Deschutes County have actually been here for years and years, and are oftentimes homeless as a result of our affordability crisis, and they've been pushed out of their homes because they simply can't afford to live here. And so I want to be real clear about that. And then what the job is not sort of wild ideas out of sort of a Trump playbook that are both illegal and ineffective. Unfortunately, the county doesn't have jurisdiction over federal lands in that 6-mile buffer around UGBs, and they already have their own camping rules. Nor could the county afford to actually enforce that buffer and pay for the law enforcement that would be required. And I don't think our law enforcement officers would want to. An idea like that is actually really dangerous for our community because it pushes people even further out, even into more wildfire-prone areas of Deschutes County, or it pushes people into our cities and allows county commissioners of certain worldviews to just wash their hands and say this is a city issue, no longer a county issue. So what I'm about, and what I think the job of being a county commissioner is looking at best practices. And I think there's 4 things that a good county commissioner would advocate for on this issue. One, the most cost-effective thing they can do is partner with community agencies to keep people housed, to help with rent, to help with utilities, so that people don't find themselves on a bad month or a bad day having to make that choice to move into the car and live in dirt. So we can keep people housed. We can identify safe camping and safe parking opportunities and programs. And that's not the dream. I don't want to see anybody living in dirt. But in the meantime, and until we have ideas that are more long-term, like RV parks, we actually have to advocate for these interim options where people have the support they need right where they're at. And Housing First is actually statistically a best practice, and it does work. It has to be bolstered, like you said, with mental health support and addiction services, wraparound services, but we can keep people housed if we can identify those interim options of safe camping and safe parking. And if we can then, while we do that, bring more transitional housing and permanent supportive housing online, even as we work on our affordable housing crisis, those are the ingredients to work towards a solution for this problem. And I think we can insist on a Deschutes County where people live in dignity and have a place to stay, where our kids have a home to wake up in before they go to school, where our workforce doesn't have to worry about where they're going to keep their tools in the woods during the day. We have construction workers who are building our homes, who are living unhoused because they can't afford the homes they're building, and we can do better in Deschutes County. And I think we need county commissioners that are going to insist on real solutions, not shiny ideas that have no basis in reality.
Can I respond? I'd like to respond. Don't understand the Trump reference, but that's okay.
Just big ideas without
Oh.
a lot of substance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of substance. So what we do have is we already have ordinances that are in place that are enforceable, that are no new campgrounds within certain perimeter of the UGB. So the idea of expanding that to 6 miles, the reason why that is an idea is because if you look at 6 miles specifically and you look at the overlapping rings, what it means is it's no longer beneficial to be homeless and camping without having now. Hey, I am all about having, if we can have managed camps, if we can have new RV parks, if we can have places, people need a place to land. That's compassionate. It's not compassionate if you've gone and spent any time out in China Hat, if you've gone out and spent any time in Dirt World, if you've gone and actually gone out there, not going out there with cameras and going out there to get shots and no, this is about spending time with people, delivering services, bringing water, bringing the things that they need, and having true compassion for them. When you start to talk to them, you see the sadness that is there because there's not, and I know there's a lot of our people that can't afford to live here and work here, which is another issue. It's not in and of itself homelessness. Taking homelessness and then making that with affordable housing, I don't think that those are inextricably linked. I think that there's a houseless issue, there's a homeless issue. Some of that has to do with mental health, some of that has to do with drug addiction, some of it has to do with circumstances. We need to filter through that. But as far as affordable housing is, yes, we need to address the people that are there because they can't afford housing, but not everyone who is homeless in our woods is homeless there because they can't afford housing.
I think so.
Yes.
So we are at the limit of our time, and this would be the time that I would go around the table and ask for closing comments and things we might have missed. Rob, I know you're on a tight timeline.
Yes, sir.
Can you stay for closing comments?
Let me see.
We wouldn't be.
My timer
It would be an
says-
additional 10 minutes. Then this time we'll start closing comments with you, Rob. If you want to just, again, anything that we might have missed, we'll take 2 minutes for each, and or why you're running and closing comments.
I feel like my job as county commissioner is not to create chaos, but to create stability. There's a lot of chaos around a lot of the different issues. There's a lot of differing ways that we can get. We agree there's a problem. We just disagree on how to get there. I feel like what people are looking for is the county commissioners are protecting their investment as a taxpayer. And so it's safety, it's quality of life, but it's protection. That's what the role of government should be. And so I feel like we need to invite feedback. We need to have conversations, difficult conversations. We need to be okay with disagreeing and not being disagreeable. I intend to work with whatever other 4 commissioners that I'm going to work with to try to find real lasting solutions. And sometimes that's presenting ideas that maybe on the surface seem like they are not attainable or they're far-fetched. The intent is it's not clickbait. The intent is what's working, what we think we're doing now. If we can agree that it's not working, then how do we make either what is currently being done work, or shift it and move it and reform it? And I feel like that should be all of our goal. All of us should have the same goal, which is to make Deschutes County the best place to raise your family. That's my goal. My goal is not to be argumentative for the sake of being argumentative. It's let's look at the outcome focused. If it's not getting the results, then let's not be so married to it that we can't shift from it, regardless of what that is. And so, yes, coming up with new and big and bold ideas is something that I do, but I also have a tremendous amount of experience, whether we're talking about the housing issue and affordability, working with doing private public partnerships, working with the county. Maybe there's a way that the county can subsidize land to the point of, we look at mobile home parks. Mobile home parks, traditionally, you don't own the land that the house is sitting on. So maybe there's something the county can do to open up land to be able to put houses on, whether they're manufactured homes or, there's a number of different building methods now that can create a lower cost per square foot. Can we make a house affordable? Most of the people I know that live in Central Oregon, if you ask them if they can afford to buy their house today that they bought 10 years ago, most people can't. That's a problem. I know that my kids, and the people that work for me, they cannot afford to buy a house in Central Oregon. That's a problem. So how do we get there? I think that it is going to require a lot of collaboration and honest conversations, and putting everything on the table and figuring out what can we do to be the most efficient form of government to serve our people the best way we can.
Thank you. Yes. Morgan.
I'm running for county commissioner for many reasons, but the biggest one is that I believe this can be a place where everyone can actually afford to thrive. I'm building a broad coalition of partnerships to solve real problems. I'm proudly endorsed by 3 parties, multiple labor unions, local, state, and federal elected officials, and dozens and dozens of community leaders across the entire county and across the ideological spectrum. Because for me, this isn't about partisan divides, it's about partnership to do the work that matters. I'm running because I think that we should stop rolling out the red carpet for luxury development in our rural lands and wild places. I'm running to stop dehumanizing and demonizing our unhoused neighbors and to provide actual solutions to move them out of homelessness. I'm running to stop deceiving voters with quote unquote big ideas that are illegal or recklessly expensive or ineffective. And I'm ready to stop seeing a county commission who's willing to pass the buck and wash our hands of responsibility for Deschutes County residents who require excellent service and support. I'm going to stop the habit our county commission has had of putting personal and partisan interests ahead of the people of Deschutes County. I'm ready. I have a plan. I've been doing the work for years and I'm ready to do the job. We're going to start making budget decisions that reflect the values of our whole community and reflect the deep care we have for our lands and waters and the risk that we see in wildfire. We're going to leave no stone unturned in our pursuit of affordable housing and real options for our unhoused neighbors. We're going to offer equitable, robust public health and mental health services so that on somebody's worst day, they know who to call and they know where to go and they have help available. We're going to balance plans for thoughtful, strategic growth with an unyielding commitment to our environment and fire-resilient communities. And I think together we can fiercely protect our community against federal overreach and any sort of Trump Republican who's willing to defy the law of the land and the sacred laws of human dignity in our community. I'm the candidate who knows what this job means and is ready to do the work. I didn't wait to decide that Deschutes County was worth fighting for. I've been in this fight for years. And I don't think we need a MAGA Republican at the helm who's willing to suggest big ideas that don't solve problems. I'm a commissioner who is ready to build on my established relationships and reputation as someone who's here to serve the community, to really solve the problems we're facing. And so with my track record, I know I can win. And with my experience and character, I know I can lead. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thank you. I've kind of boiled down my election into my campaign into 3 words: independent, experienced, and homegrown. Homegrown I talked about earlier about I grew up here. I lived out in the county, lived in Bend later in my life, and now live in Sisters. So I've lived all over this county. I've seen every kind of change you can imagine. When I moved here, it was 17,000 people in Bend, and I think Redmond was 6,000 people. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm excited to take that knowledge to the county level and fight for great decisions for the future. I'm independent. I'm the true nonpartisan candidate. I've never been affiliated with a party, mostly because I'm not a team player. It's just because I really like to take every issue, every question, every situation, every idea solely on its merits and not what might be behind driving that or opinions or ideologies. And I'm experienced. I've been on council in Sisters for 6 years. I've been doing the work, and I have really great working connections because of that with every mayor in this county, city councilors on every council, our state representatives in Deschutes County. I had great relationships with leadership in the Forest Service and the BLMs. I used to work for the Forest Service for a number of years. Great relationships with the Oregon Department of Forestry and a lot of our fire districts, and work so much on doing wildfire work in and around Sisters, and we've been really successful in making a lot of big changes. I'd like to help the county further improve wildfire risk in our county. I have great working relationships with our senators and representatives that I work with. Governor's office. I'm the candidate that day one can start working and hit the ground running. And that's because, remember, we're going to have potentially 4 new commissioners. Besides Commissioner DeBone, my resume stands out as having the experience to hit the ground running and start work day one. And that's what I want to do. I think you mentioned it too, campaigning isn't really the fun part of this, though you get to meet a lot of great people and learn a lot of things, but I really love the work, and I really just want to get to work and get the job done for people in Deschutes County. It's my home, and I'm excited for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate you guys carving out what I know is a super busy schedule as you do this, and this is not the most comfortable part of the campaigning process. So really appreciate all 3 of you, and I think the voters are going to have a really interesting time choosing between you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a good problem to have when you have good candidates.
Yeah. Yeah.